The whole intent of the space reform was that how do we take this whole ecosystem that has been created beyond ISRO and let the whole country, anybody who wants from the space business, benefit from it. We do measure number of space startups, which number has now crossed 300, starting from maybe less than 50, about 3.5, 4 years ago. Government is putting money in a sector that's uncertain, that has not yet demonstrated, and that's high risk, all of that. In auto industry, I had a long runway, 25 years or so, to make an impact. Now here I have a runway of, I don't know, maybe 6 months, 1 year, 2 years.
In February 2022, an auto industry veteran was given the keys to the liberalization of India's space sector. Pawan Goenka isn't your usual rocket man. A technocrat who spent decades steering Mahindra & Mahindra to global prominence, Goenka is now navigating a very different orbit. As chairperson of InSpace, the nodal agency tasked with opening up India's space sector to private enterprise. Under his stewardship, InSpace has gone from a cabinet-formed body to the anchor of India's space commercialization ambitions, overseeing tech transfers, startup facilitation, regulatory frameworks, and even a 1,000 crore rupee VC fund. And why not? The space is bustling with ambition. In less than 4 years, over 300 startups have entered the fray, a commercial launchpad is under construction in Tamil Nadu, and India is making a serious bid to become the global hub for small satellite launches. In this episode, we chart Goenka's transformation from cars to cosmos. We decode the economics of India's space industry and its liberalization, how new startup satellites in this space are trying to find their own orbits even as they are guided by the mothership ISRO, and the regulatory teeth India's new Space Activities Bill is about to give in space. From semi-cryogenic 3D printed engines to hyperspectral imaging and space debris analytics, this episode is about India's space playbook in the making and the man that is helping write that playbook. It's Monday, the 21st of July. I'm your host Anirban Chaudhary, joined by my colleague Nirmal John, and this is Corner Office Conversation, a brand new fortnightly show from the Economic Times podcasts where we talk to the most interesting leaders from Indian and global businesses. Hi, Dr. Goenka. Very warm welcome to the Morning Brief. So glad to have you with us.
How are you, Anirban?
Good, sir. Good. Thank you. So let's start with the biggest development that has happened very recently in this space, pun unintended, which is the privatization of small satellite launch rockets, or SSLVs. Let's start with, what are the 2 or 3 ways in which you think this will change the story of India's space industry?
See, first of all, it demonstrates the seriousness of Government of India to bring in space reforms. First time ever, such a major technology being transferred lock, stock and barrel from a space agency to a private company or to an industry has never happened before anywhere, to the best of my knowledge. Okay. Number 2, it's sort of creating the ecosystem for India to become a hub for small satellite launches. With the help of SSLV, the Skyroot, the Agnikul, we will have 3 rockets in India and that can fly small satellites, along with the launch center that we are creating in Kulsekapatnam. So India, therefore, is going to claim its sort of right to become the global hub for small launch vehicles. And third, in a way, we are creating a new space company. The winner of this bid is obviously a very well-known defense company and has participated in space also as a vendor. But for the first time, they will do space as a full business. That means own, design, manufacture, sell, brand, market, everything. So these are the kind of things that we need to see happen, where multiple such companies come up who lay claim to being a space company, and therefore play an important role in space.
Dr. Goenka, let me take you to the beginning of your first answer, where when you spoke about space reforms and how they have really changed this industry. In that context, if I were to ask you, how do you measure the success of, in space by number of projects, investment inflows, startups that have been launched, or missions that have been enabled?
So for that, you have to go back to the space reform objective and why in space was formed. Right? And we have, in a sense, two different mandates. One mandate is to provide a regulatory regime that will make it easily navigate the whole space area in respect to government regulations, different licenses, and stuff like that. And second is to grow the space economy on the back of industry. So there are two ways of measuring success. One is how successful are we in creating a very smooth ease of doing business for the private sector or for the industry to navigate the government in getting all the approvals, authorities, and licenses. But a more objective measurement would be how much are we able to grow the space economy. So we do measure number of space startups, which number has now crossed 300, starting from maybe less than 50 about 3.5, 4 years ago. The second measure is, of course, how much investment is coming in. Last year was about $100 million. And this year we would expect some big deals that are in the pipeline right now. So if those things happen, then we will easily cross the best before. Okay. And the third measure will be number of launches that are being done by the NGEs. But all of these things then feed into the economy. Okay. The difficulty today is there is no measure. And there is no system that is in place right now by which we can say this year economy was X, next year is Y, and so on and so forth. We started off with $8.5 billion. That is at best a good estimate. Okay, there is no clear measure, and we were surprised that almost no country in the world has a good measure of a space economy. So right now we are working with MOSPI. There is Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, the agency that does our GDP estimates and forecast, and working with them to see how do we measure a space economy, so that then we are able to say how quickly we are moving forward to ultimate objective of $44 billion by 2033. So that to me is a single best measure which combines everything into it.
If I were to ask you the three examples of tech innovation happening in the startup space in India that really excite you, what would you say?
So the first one I would say is the Agnikul technology for the small launch vehicle. Okay. They are bringing in for the first time a semi-cryogenic 3D printed engine. Nobody in the world has done that before up to now. They're the first ones doing it. And that makes their launch vehicle much easier to build, much faster to build because it's 3D printed, right? Lighter, and hence they will be able to do a lowest cost launch as a result of that. Then I would say that there's a lot happening in imaging technology. And one company that comes to my mind will be Pixxel, who are launching hyperspectral imaging satellite. They've launched 3 of them called Firefly constellation. Again, the claim is that they're the first commercial launch of hyperspectral technology for imaging that nobody else has done before. A relatively new technology, and what it allows is to look at multiple bands, a little bit technical, but multiple bands simultaneously, and give a much better, much more reliable image than anything else. One other thing that kind of comes to my mind is the work that Digantara is doing. And Digantara is a company that is working on space situational analysis. And they're trying to, again, bring in something that has not been done before.
Debris analysis?
That's right, right? So again, this will allow us to be sort of in the forefront of SSA. They are setting up telescopes to do the sort of observation of satellites and bring in, and then work on technology on how do we repair or how do we bring back the satellites that have lived their life. And they've set a very good infrastructure in Bengaluru to do this. What is good about the space companies as nobody is walking the proven path. Everybody is trying to create something new and create their right to win by doing something that nobody has done before, including ISRO.
So, in one line, the opening up of the space sector is opening it up beyond ISRO. But then ISRO is still, again, pun unintended, the mothership, right? So a lot of the success of these startups, etc., depend on how well they can use ISRO's infrastructure, at least in the short term, and in space is supposed to facilitate that. How is that going?
The whole intent of the space reform was that how do we take this expertise that has been done, the whole ecosystem that has been created beyond ISRO, and let the whole country, anybody who wants from the space business, benefit from it. And that's exactly what is happening right now. Okay, so all launches, for example, happen using ISRO launchpads, right? All the test facilities that ISRO has is accessible to industry. Okay. Now, so far, we have not had a situation where industry wanted to use something and we had to say sorry. Sorry, either because it's too confidential or because, sorry, we are too busy, we cannot give it to you. Sometimes you have to wait a little while, but almost in every case so far, and there have been more than 100, if not, I think, more than 200 situations where ISRO facilities have been used by NGEs, and we have not had a situation of sorry. Okay. Might happen in future, no guarantee, but so far not.
Hi, Dr. Goenka. This is Nirmal. If I may come in here, one of the things that I've been told by various space startups is that raising Series A and B is still a pain point. Earlier, it was raising seed funding that was a problem. I think that's been solved to an extent. But right now, space money in space, venture money in space seems to be focusing on seed funding rather than Series A and B. Now, the government had mentioned that they would be launching a 1,000 crore VC fund. Just wanted to understand, where are we in that journey?
Okay, so I'm going to take a step back before I come to your question. See, it is right then that many of the space companies now have reached that level of requiring 50 crore, 70 crore, 100 crore kind of check size, and that is Series B and Series C. And they are perhaps having some difficulty getting that money because different kinds of investors invest in Series B and C than in angel funding or VC funding, right? The ones who are investing in angel and VC funding are expecting 1 out of 10 to work out, right? And the ones who are investing in Series B and C want 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 to work out. And therefore, these companies, these investors would require a pretty good, comforting proof of concept, a sort of a roadmap for revenue, a roadmap for profit before they will invest that money. And not too many companies in space have reached that point yet. So we have to be little bit realistic of, rather than saying investors are not coming forward, we also have to say, do we have the business case in front of the investors that investors are really willing to invest in? Now, to your question on 1,000 crore VC fund, we are almost at the last leg now. Lots of approvals that were required, lot of tendering that we had to do, all that is done now. In space will only be an investor. In space will not decide who the funding is given to or who the equity is purchased from or which company is investment done in, because we want it to be left completely on a commercial basis. I would say that we probably are not farther than 2 to 3 months before they can start doing. They already started the process of registering and so on, and we are doing the last bit of approvals internal to the government, and we should be going very, very soon. And there, just to be clear, that our upper limit of a single investment is 60 crores. Okay, so what we are expecting is, let's say if there is a 200 crore fund, 200 crore round, then 60 crore could come from this venture capital fund if the fund manager likes the investment. And on the basis of this fund investing 60 crores, there will be many others. In a way, it becomes a stamp of approval. And the many others who will come forward and fill the gap and reach to 200 crores. So that will, in a sense, open up the whole Series B and Series C. But both have to happen together. And so it's not a giveaway, it's not a grant, it's an investment. Therefore, government is putting money in a sector that's uncertain, that has not yet demonstrated, and that's high risk, all of that. At the same time, it will be investment made as if it's an investor money who is looking for getting a return better than putting it in the fixed deposit.
How are you facilitating participation of startups for India's defense requirements? And I'm talking both in terms of services and hardware.
Yeah. So it's not just in space, it is the in space and NSIL ISRO combined that is doing that. So, as per the current process, any requirement that defense might have for upstream hardware will always be channeled through NSIL. NSIL on its part will do a tender. Depending on what it is, it may go directly to ISRO or it may go to private sector, right? And a lot of sort of opportunities are coming in the way of private sector through defense, which is moving quite well.
How does the interfacing between ISRO, InSpace, and NSIL work? How often do you meet, and how does the coordination happen between the three pillars of India's space program?
There are multiple formal mechanisms and there are equal number of informal mechanisms. The formal mechanisms are, number one, on the board of InSpace, we have 5 people from DOS and ISRO. Second, we have a space council, which has membership of ISRO, led by ISRO, where InSpace and NSIL both are members. Okay. Third, there is a specific committee that has been set up by Chairman ISRO to look at all interfaces between ISRO and InSpace to make sure it goes smoothly. And fourth, finally, whatever InSpace does, it comes under administrative control of DOS. See, ISRO and InSpace are government departments. NSIL is a PSU. So it's a different relationship being a PSU than being a government department. So in a sense, NSIL also is one of the companies that will come to InSpace for authorizations and approvals, right? So that relationship is like with anybody else. When it comes to anything that is happening with respect to initiatives of InSpace that will have an impact on the industry, NSIL is more often than not consulted to get their viewpoint. But we also have to be careful that NSIL should not get an unfair advantage because of proximity to InSpace. NSIL has a special role to play because they are the commercial arm, as many people say, of ISRO. At the same time, they are also a industry, a NGE, that is participating in the space sector along with all the other players.
The ISRO chairman had mentioned earlier this year that the first privately built PSLV will be launched in the third quarter of this year. Is that still on? And the second part of the question is, what is the cadence that we are looking at from private companies participating in this project? How often would launches be at peak private PSLV?
The first one is, I think, about to happen. I'm not directly involved in it. It's handled by NSIL, but about to happen. And during this financial year, we will see the first launch of the private sector built or industry built PSLV. Now, how many PSLV launches can happen every year? I think different people will give you different answers. Okay, to me, PSLV is a workhorse, which is very reliable. Okay, perhaps amongst the highest reliability in the world. The last one was unfortunately a failure, but otherwise one of the highest reliability in the world of any rocket that we have. And therefore, I think there is a significant level of potential demand for PSLV. If I'm the owner of PSLV as a business, I would target that I should be able to launch one PSLV every 2 months.
Dr. Goenka, I have two questions, one on regulation, the other on facilitation. The Space Activities Bill is now, the new draft is ready. One of the things that it will do is give InSpace a lot of legal teeth apart from, of course, making private investment easier, etc. Explain to me, sir, as a layman, what happens when this comes about.
So I think most people know TRAI. Okay, TRAI is formed by an act of parliament, that is by the law. It's a law, right? Whereas in space currently is formed by an act of cabinet and not act of parliament, and therefore it does not have a legal power. Okay, so if somebody wants to challenge something that in space has said you are authorized or not authorized, it can be challenged in the court of law, and there's nothing that defines in space's power. What we cannot do right now is impose penalties for any act or deed. So once the law comes, that part becomes a solid part, right? I think the draft is more or less ready for public consultation now. Anytime it should be released. Anytime could be weeks, could be a few months. Should be released because it has to go through internal consultation first before it goes to a public consultation. But I would say this, that there's nothing that is not happening today, and there's nothing that any space is not able to do today because there is no space law.
So I just want to understand, just to enlighten myself, a lot of our, like the tech laws, the privacy laws, they are sort of based on something that's happened internationally, like GDPR, etc. Is this also fashioned on an international?
Yeah, so
statute of law?
basically we have to see, first of all, there is no country in the world, to the best of our knowledge, that has an organization like InSpace, which is a regulator of space. Okay? Space is almost always regulated by the agency, the space agency of the country. India is the first country to put these two separate. So in that sense, India is unique. So we have nothing to read. Having said that, the various things that we are bringing into the space law, for example, what kind of third-party liability does a private operator have to take for launching a rocket or launching a satellite? Right? We are looking at multiple countries to see what they do and ensure that India brings in something which is less burden on the NGEs than anywhere else in the world. So we are benchmarking that way. For doing something wrong, what kind of penalties are being imposed by other people? And again, we are benchmarking ourselves. So a lot of that knowledge has gone into making the draft space law.
Right. Talk about facilitation, which was the other part of my question, and especially from state governments. Now, Karnataka has always been the hub, but in your recent interviews, you've also spoken about Gujarat and Tamil Nadu, which are setting up their own manufacturing facilities. What are other states doing? Which states do you feel encouraged by what is really happening?
Well, see, if you look at the space activity in India, it's primarily in 5 or 6 states, right? Gujarat, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra, Karnataka, right? So I think these 5 states probably are 85-90% of space activity. But in the last 3-4 years, a lot of interest is coming from multiple states in getting into space, right? So Gujarat, Tamil Nadu took the lead. They're the first 2 states to talk about space policy, the state space policy. First 2 states to dedicate land for creating manufacturing cluster. Karnataka was the latest one that have signed MOU with InSpace. And there are 2 or 3 other states that we are talking to who, some of them already have a strong space ecosystem and some are absolutely new to space. For example, just a few days ago, we signed MOU with a district in UP to launch the rocket competition that we have, the rocket and CANSAT competition, which was signed in the presence of the Honorable Chief Minister. Assam is becoming quite aggressive in the state. They're the first state in India to announce a state satellite called Assam Sat. Right? So they are being very aggressive. So again, a lot of interest is coming into state, which is good. Because once the states start taking interest, the manufacturing will be supported by the states.
Dr. Goenka, when is the first launch expected to happen from the new launch pad in Tamil Nadu?
So the timelines for the launch of Kulsekapatnam Launch Center is aligned with the timeline of the technology transfer to HAL from ISRO. So we expect both of those to happen about the same time. There will be 2 rockets that will be launched before this launch pad is ready. These will be launched from Sriharikota, And after that, this launch pad will be ready. So in little less than 2 years.
Dr. Goenka, the one thing that I've always believed in is that India has a great space story, but unlike NASA, we really don't tell it well enough. How do you propose to make space and India's adventure in space more accessible for the Indian population?
Right. So that's what we are doing right now. I think it's people like you who have to come forward and tell their story, and people in ISRO, in space, in NSIL, in the industry have to give this story. So I think if you would agree with me that in the last 3-4 years, a lot has changed. Uh, Typically, when it comes to space, what gets most coverage are the launches. And what's beginning to happen now is more and more is being written about not just that part of space, but what does space really mean to us? Space is not just about launches. In fact, our daily life that is sort of impacted or influenced by space from the time that we wake up till the time we go to sleep, and maybe even when we're sleeping. Of course, when something like Operation Sindoor happens, then everybody realizes what space means, even in the warfare. So I think now more and more the story is getting told. So I think that, like you said, that you are absolutely right that we probably have done more than we have talked about, and now we are making up for it by perhaps talking more and more about what's happening now and also what has happened in the past.
Dr. Goenka, over the last few years, one of the problems that I've seen affect private participation in space is the Antariksh controversy. Have we moved past that as a friction point for India's space program and private participation is in India's space program?
See, the antrics matter, as you know, is sub judice, and therefore I don't want to comment too much on it. But what I would say is that today, I don't think there is any fear looming on anybody's head that because of that bad experience, one should not get into space or one should not trust a private sector company. Okay, there was just one bad situation, is all I can say. There was a long time ago, but we I think we have moved forward from that, and not letting the shadow of that come in the way of us doing what is the right thing to do to take our space sector forward.
Specifically, when it comes to things like satellite imaging, what are the controls that are in place? I'm asking in the context of all these geopolitical conflicts that are going on right now. And one of the key tools of propaganda seem to be privately sourced satellite images. So, what controls do we have in place in this regard?
So see, we have to be very careful here. Okay, undoubtedly, security comes number one priority, and nothing that we can do or we should do that will come in the way of compromising with security. At the same time, we will not put unnecessary constraints on Indian companies, which other companies don't have. So, like all the data that got talked about, these are the images, but all these images were taken by satellites that are not Indian satellites, right? And Indian satellites can go and take similar images somewhere else. Nobody can stop them. So that's the difficult part in space, because you don't own space. You cannot stop anybody from doing whatever they want to do in space. And I'm sure that all major countries have all important information about all countries.
Now, to understand a little bit more about your personal journey, for technocrats, the shift from private sector is never easy. What were some of the specific issues that you faced in your journey from Mahindra to in space, and how did you overcome them?
And just to add, I mean, what are the things you had to unlearn, perhaps?
This is a question that I get asked often. So let me start off by anecdote. In the beginning, when I just joined, I went to meet Dr. Somnathan, who is now the cabinet secretary. So he came in and very warmly said, "Dr. Goenka, thank you." I said, "Thank you for what? I've just come into the government in this job." He said, "Thank you because everybody criticizes the government from outside. Nobody dares to come in and see the real situation that we are working in. You have dared to come in, so thank you for that." So first question is, how difficult was the transition for you? See, I think other than the fact that as a CEO in a corporate, once you have decided, you have decided. There's nobody to ask you why, how, if something went wrong, so be it. I will move on in life, made a mistake, so be it, right? In government, that doesn't happen. There is almost nobody who has the ultimate power, full power to decide whatever they want to decide. Now, in my view, if you ran government like you ran the corporate, you will have disaster on hand. Okay, in corporate, you are unidirectional. No matter how complex the corporate is, it's still unidirectional compared to the government. You have 100,000, 200,000, 500,000 shareholders who you have to take care of, whose interests are the interests that you are supposed to take care of. A government is taking care of interests of 140 crore people, right? That's a very different accountability than you will have in a corporate. The audit process in government is extraordinarily strong, right? And nobody would like to see an audit para written against a decision that they have taken. So I would say that, see, in a way, good thing that happened for me was that I was announced to take on this role in September, and I actually got my appointment letter in February. So in that 6 month, I was there but not there. So that allowed me to visit multiple ISRO centers, talk to a lot of ISRO scientists, attend many conferences to understand space technology. One advantage that I had is that over my 25 years of auto sector and being president of SIAM and being involved in CII, I worked with the government a lot in the last 15-20 years, right? So I kind of knew how government officers think. So that also helped me a little bit in the transition from outside to inside. So I found it as if I've just a different job.
Dr. Goenka, one last question on your journey and where you stand now. You were awarded the Padma Shri last month. Would you say you stand on the same or similar cusp of growth when it comes to space as you were when you had joined Auto 20, yes, more than 20 years back?
So first of all, let me say that receiving Padma Shri was something that I had never ever thought in my wildest dreams. Now, look, when I came in the auto industry, the starting point, and when I'm coming into the space industry, the starting point are very different. Okay, where I am in my career are also very different. Right? In auto industry, I had a long runway. From when I came into the auto industry in India at the age of 39, I knew that I have 25 years or so to make an impact. And auto industry was at a inflection point in India, having just gone through the economic reforms of 91 and many companies coming in. For Indian auto companies, it was a situation of whether they'll survive or not survive. Now here I have a runway of, I don't know, maybe 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, but not 20 years. Right? So in that runway, the role that I have is not to change the space technology. I cannot. Okay. Not to redefine the technical path of space that ISRO is doing and doing wonderfully well. My role is to see how we can get the private sector, when I say private sector, PSUs included, how NGEs to play a meaningful role that 10 years from now, 15 years from now, NGEs together will be as important for Indian space sector as ISRO. Okay, not one individual company, but together will be as important. Kind of like what NASA has versus the private sector in USA. So I see the whole journey evolve in a way similar to US. So it's a very different role. I'm very happy to be where I am in the space situation today. I was very happy to be where I was in automotive when I started, but two different runway, two different mandates. Therefore, I cannot compare.
Right. Dr. Goenka, thank you so much for joining us on the Morning Brief.
Great. It was my pleasure to talk to you, both of you. Thank you so much. Very interesting.
The contours of the global space race have definitely changed. It's not just about the number of launches and the money pumped in, but also indigenous tech, self-reliance, and of course, frugal engineering. By the former benchmarks, India is still way behind. But if we go by the latter, it is a name to reckon with. As the $44 billion by 2033 goalpost for the industry looms, one thing is clear. India is reaching for the stars, and it's building the launchpads, the rockets, and the capital stack to get there. Space is open for business, and in space is the gateway. You are listening to this episode on Corner Office Conversation, a brand new fortnightly show from the Economic Times. Do like, share, and subscribe. We will come to you every alternate Monday with a brand new conversation with some of the most interesting people in Indian and global businesses. Stay tuned, keep listening.